You are listening to the Starter Girls podcast with Jennifer Loading. Whether you are starting a project, starting a business, starting a brand, or starting a movement, we are here to talk about it. And I'm going to start off today with our Starter Girls mantra, and then I'm going to bring our guest on here because I'm super excited. It's a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, guys, I'm super excited to welcome Jane Paterson to the show today. Hi, Jane.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello, all listeners. Lovely to meet you.
I'm so excited to get you on here today. So real quick, I want to tell our listeners a little bit about you. I love your bio. It's such an awesome, I just love it. It fits so perfectly with who you are as an individual. So guys, let me tell you a little bit about Jane. One Perfect Speech came about after years of colleagues and friends asking Jane to help them prepare for an upcoming speech or presentation. The concept of helping everyday speakers prepare for a specific speech soon grew as others began sending cell phone videos asking for feedback and guidance. Jane's focused on each client's unique needs and requirements and then develops a personalized plan to fit their timeline. Using her proven approach, she guides the clients through a step-by-step program that guarantees they are ready, poised, and confident to give their best speech. With her qualifications and personal experience in public speaking, as well as her background in both English and teaching, Jane is perfectly positioned to coach clients from fearful to fantastic. I love this. Jane has a Bachelor of Science in English and Psychology and a postgraduate degree in education from the University of Cape Town, South Africa. She also has years of experience as an etiquette coach, teaching 21st century manners to business professionals. After decades of speaking in front of groups, Jane joined Toastmasters International, where she achieved both her Competent Communicator and Competent Leadership awards. She served as club president and is currently a Toastmasters Club mentor and advisor. I love it, Jane. Love it, love it.
Thank you.
So welcome to the Starter Girls Show. I'm ready to get in here and start chatting with you. It's going to be fun today.
Good.
So here's what I want to start off. I want you to tell us, because in your bio, you gave us a little bit of idea how this all came about. So tell us how this kind of just all evolved for you. And so our listeners kind of know what you do and what makes you unique and different in this field.
I think I was like a lot of women owners of businesses, that for me, the path was quite organic. I had had previous businesses before in different areas. And then for many years when my children were young, I was an English tutor. I went to people's homes and tutored children privately. So although my other businesses were in different fields, I definitely realized and began to understand that I'm a natural teacher. And this is what's helped me so much in being a woman business owner, is that I found the thing that I'm naturally good at and leveraged it. So it changes. As women business owners, our lives change and evolve with the needs of our families and the things around us. So I had actually been tutoring, as you mentioned, both etiquette and I was doing English tutoring, and I became interested in public speaking because I spoke so much through my businesses. I decided I should probably polish some of the skills. And I joined Toastmasters and just found it was the right place for me. And the thing that was interesting to me particularly was, I'm not saying I'm the best public speaker out there. There are people who have won awards and got trophies. I have the ability to teach it. I can break it down and get you to the point you want to be in a relatively quick period of time. So One Perfect Speech came about because, as you said, there was a need. People were reaching out to me without me doing anything. And I thought to myself, I'm ready to leave the tutoring of English game and move into this. And it's proved so rewarding. And at this time, in our current climate in this world, it's unbelievable how many people are now thinking about how they sound, how they come across on camera, and anything that can influence and improve them and raise their skill set. So it wasn't, I wish I could say that I had this all planned out every step of the way, but a lot of it evolved for me by trusting in myself and listening to the market around me.
I love that. And you said a couple things I want to point out, that you were talking about your strengths, about the teaching and how you found your strengths. And I think that's so important because that's where I think you really can do great things and have the most influence is when you figure out what you're really good at and then pair that up with a passion. I think that that's where you get that collision of just impact. You know what I mean? So I
Put.
absolutely. And I can absolutely see the teaching part of you. I can see that part. I think that's
Yes.
so great. And you're right. We are in a time right now where, yes, it is immensely important how you're coming across, what you're saying, how you're saying it, and sometimes
Correct.
just the words, can make a difference. And sometimes it's how it's being communicated, and I always talk about too with people that, like even in an industry where you are teaching people, one person can say something to somebody that somebody else can come in and say the exact same thing, but the message is received completely different. So
Completely differently.
I love what you're doing. I love it.
Yes.
So what kind of clients do you work with? You said a little bit. So are you doing more like individual? You have companies? Like what kind of clients are you working with?
For me, I've always been drawn to one-on-one. I'm very much, and I know it's a hackneyed term, I'm very much a people person. I like the ability to influence one person. And the reason I find that the most effective is every person who comes to me, every speaker, whether they're a teenager looking to improve their class participation, whether they are a college student needing to do presentations for the first time or present proper professional papers, whether it's someone straight out of college looking for interview technique, or I'm working with business people or someone who just has to give a mother bride speech. No matter what it is, their needs are unique. And
Right.
That's where that secret sauce for me comes in. I evaluate every person individually, first of all, because whether you believe it or not, every single person has great qualities in their public speaking. Some people are the masters of hand gestures. Other people control the space with their body language and their hand gestures. Regardless of what it is, I evaluate each client separately. As I say, whether they're 14 or 70, I work out exactly what they do well, and I tell them, and then I look at the areas for improvement and specifically suggest areas where they can up their game. The client also has their goals. So at one perfect speech, I then have to marry up what are they trying to achieve with what I can do. The moment you get very specific like this, the benefit is the learning curve is much quicker. It's much faster when you're dealing with that person one-on-one. You can course correct within the blink of an eye. They didn't do this well. They did that well. Let's move on. Gosh, they don't need more work in that area, but that maybe we do, and I take it from there. So for me, I have done groups to a certain point, but in this business and with what I do, I really find my strength is particularly working one-on-one with people. And the real joy nowadays is that long before the current health crisis, I worked via laptop, via Skype, via all these things with students. So it was a very natural progression to get to that point. Currently, believe it or not, I've been working with a lot of people on interview technique. And I tell you why that's come about is lots and lots of people are still interviewing. I know it sounds rare, but lots of people are interviewing at the moment. And it came a real need because I had people suddenly panicking and coming to me saying, look, I assumed all the interviews after the first round, maybe on the phone or via email, I assumed I would be in the person's office. I'm sitting there, eye level to eye level across the desk, watching their hand gestures, looking at their facial expressions, listening to their tone. Now suddenly I'm being called to do that first round of interviews via telephone. And then I have to do it via a laptop camera. And people start to panic because it's a very different skill set. So for me, this wasn't a big transition because I have students all over the country and one or two all over the world. So I naturally would work behind this. So I would say, well, this is how you and I are doing it. And so we would up their game. That's one area. The other area that I'm finding very interesting, and I'm definitely going to look into this a bit deeper, is because people come to me and then I help them, was a lot of parents are coming to me and saying, I'm very concerned about how prepared my child is, whether they're a high school, middle school, or college, for this new school year. Because we are going into a very different atmosphere in terms of academics.
Right.
So younger children are going to struggle with, I believe they're going to struggle with classroom participation. They've maybe had 1 hour of online tutoring a day, maybe 2, 3, depending on their school district and their school. And they're used to doing it from behind a camera. Now they're going to physically be back in class, and they're going to be doing it with students around them and a teacher. How do they know how to handle interruptions? There are ways to deal with that. How do they up their classroom participation? In terms of students coming to me who are older in college, I'm finding a lot of them are needing to up their skills in terms of virtual communication. You see, a lot of people think the younger generation are so great on all this technology, which they are, no disrespect. But I do find that when everything became locked down and people were forced to go into a virtual setting, a lot of people, even the younger generation, were caught off guard. But a lot of them also went in with their default setting, which was a much more relaxed approach. Now, that is fine with your friends, when you're YouTubing and you're putting all cool stuff up. But if you're in a classroom situation, particularly if you're higher up in your class levels, you need to bring a degree of polish that a lot of them hadn't necessarily worked on because it wasn't necessary at that point. So that's also become a good angle. So at One Perfect Speech, this is where focusing on each person's unique need is so wonderful, because I'll find out some of them have got the most wonderful presence, but they're not doing it in a professional way, particularly in a presentation or presenting a paper or talking another classmate through a PowerPoint or whatever. So all of these things we have to relook, and it's a great time for people to learn this, because I think even once things get back to our new normal, I do think that a lot of the way we work now and the way we communicate and market ourselves now, I do believe this will continue.
I love all this. And as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about even just like in the generations here, the ways that you're having to teach these guys very differently, because, people like my age and older, yes, we've had the internet, but that hasn't been our entire lives. We didn't grow up with the internet. Like I was talking about, like internet for me came about when I was out of college. Like that's when I found out about internet. My kids, that's been their life from day one. And so I'm assuming that the coaching would be very different for these different kinds of people, because I know even like my kids, my youngest, for example, all my kids are kind of shy to some degree, which is so interesting, because I tell people that I used to be very shy and they're like, what? How did that happen? Right. But I have 3 kids that were like this, pretty shy. Yeah. And my youngest is, social anxiety has always been something for him that he's really wrestled with. And I think so much of it is because they've been on the internet and they haven't had to have these same like social skills that we sort of had to have and develop. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I think you've made such a astute observation there, in that we assume that they, as everyone says, they're natives to the technology, but they also have missed out. And I have children of my own, grown children of my own, that they missed out on a part of the social skills and the interaction that we were forced to do because there was no alternative.
Right.
And particularly now, having been removed from classmates and kept at home, and your main teacher being mom and dad, if you're lucky, if mom and dad are able to give you the time because they're not trying to run their own careers, there's so many things. In a way, I do approach the different age groups differently, but it's more in what to focus on than the actual technique, if you see what I'm saying. So what someone in their 40s, and I'm generalizing, what someone in their 40s might find complicated or difficult, someone in their 20s might not.
Right.
The one thing that is universal is, as you very cleverly said, is the anxiety and the nerves. And this is, again, a point that I'm passionate about, because there are so many little tips and tricks and techniques that I can convey to clients and students very easily that will immediately give them that confidence to move into the next set of communications with a little bit of knowledge in their pockets. Also, simply role playing it, back and forth. They're behind a screen, I'm behind a screen, practicing interview techniques. The growth is incredible in people. I worked with a gentleman, no truth, worked with a gentleman of 70 who was getting, I don't want to mention too many specifics,
right,
but he received an award. It was a Hall of Fame award for a very specific industry he was in. This gentleman was not an English speaker by birth, and as I said, in his 70s, and was definitely a scientist, had spent his whole life in a lab. And when they called me in, his company called me, and I'm thinking, well, this is going to be a 2 or 3 minute sort of toast. Thank you for this lovely award in front of, I don't know, 50 people. No, it was a 10-minute speech in front of 700 people down in Florida.
wow,
And I was like, wow, this is going to be such a battle to get this chap there. But it wasn't. He followed through. He was a great student. The good students learn so quickly.
yeah,
And incrementally, I just layered in the skills, built and built, covered verbal and nonverbal, which are equally as important, even behind a screen. And he went on to present the speech of a lifetime. And he came to me afterwards. Obviously, I got a video of the speech. It was so exciting to see it. And he came to me afterwards and he said, my one regret, he said, I'm 70. I just wish I hadn't carried this dread of public speaking with me my whole life. He had turned down opportunities to address symposiums, to give speeches at big conferences because he just didn't have the confidence and he was so worried about his accent. And once he did it, the accolades that came his way it was wonderful. So it's not so much how I teach differently, it's that individual student's level of knowledge and what they need. That's the difference.
Yeah, I love that. Now, you touched upon so many great points there. I like that you said, the universal thing is the anxiety, because it is for everybody. Yes. Public speaking is like hard for a lot of people. And, it's one of those things that, once you've done it a few times, I joke about this all the time because I remember when I first came on my podcast, that wasn't the first time I started speaking, but the first time I did the podcast, I remember nitpicking about every little thing I said. I'd watch it afterwards. I'd rip apart everything I said. And, eventually you just sort of get to the point where you're like, who cares? I got this, who cares? You're doing more than a lot of people are doing, So I love what you're doing because I think it is so important. And I think those public speaking skills are just immensely powerful for people. I mean, there's nothing like being able to walk into an interview presentation and you own that floor. Like you walk in, you command a presence, So I love that. And I got to ask you this because I think this is going to layer into so many things we're talking about.
Sure.
What do you love most about what you get to do? I think you've said so many points here, but what is the best part of this?
Seeing people embrace a part of their life that they never, ever considered before. And I tell you, this is very particular to me in terms of women, because no disrespect to men, I have an incredible husband. I can see your husband is hugely supportive of you and your career as well. But a lot of time in business and in social settings, women will automatically, without knowing it, defer to a male presence in a room. For whatever reason, young men, and I have a son of my own, seem to be raised or inculcate this knowledge that when they speak, they do it without fear or often filters. Whereas a lot of women will run the message through in their head 3 times before they say it. Well, at that point, someone else has jumped in and already claimed their point. We all heard about mansplaining. We all know a woman will say something in a business meeting or a cocktail party, and a lovely gentleman 2 minutes later will say the exact same thing, and everybody will be, wow, Bob, brilliant. So for women to find their voice, literally and figuratively, is one of the most empowering things you can do, because at so many points in your life, you will be called on to speak. And I have people say to me when they know what I do, I'm not a podcaster, I'm not giving big speeches and whatever. So what's going to happen if one day they come into your town and they want to build, I don't know, a nuclear station on your doorstep?
Right.
and you want to advocate. Imagine that you have the skills that you can say, I'll stand up in front of the town council. I'll put my ideas together and I will present this in a way that will connect with my audience and will inspire them to follow my thinking for our town. There's so many things. People turn down giving eulogies for their parents because they're so worried about public speaking. Almost every one of us at some point in our lives will want to speak, whether we're just trying to influence a group of people, you're trying to lead a team, inspire them. If you have those skills and you're able to leverage them, and I'm not saying you're going to do TEDx, but just to leverage those skills and have a couple of things in your toolbox, psychologically, the difference is huge. And you're going to go in and you're going to do such a better job. And the funny thing is, so many people turn around to me at the end of one of our, some people I coach for 1 hour, some people I coach for 6 months, will turn around and say to me, this changed my life, and I wish I'd known how easy it is. Because it takes work, but none of this is rocket science. I'm not trying to teach you to play the piano or program code computers. We're humans, we're built with the ability to speak. All we need to do is figure out how to convey our ideas in an effective manner. And that's something I guarantee everybody can learn to do. It's really a guaranteed skill.
That's great. I love all of that. It's so awesome. Awesome. So this has been great. This has been awesome. I want to ask you just some fun questions. I always like to do these towards the end. And I call these my rapid fire. And this is just that we get to humanize you a little bit and see you on a different side. So when you're not doing all this incredible teaching and coaching and empowering your people to speak well, what else do you like to do for fun?
Well, I'm very fortunate. My children are old enough and employed and out the house. And even when they were younger, we're a big traveling family. I grew up with Scottish parents. I was born and raised in South Africa to expat Scottish parents who love to travel. And let me tell you, traveling from the tip of Africa, everywhere is far. Everywhere is far. So we traveled. My husband came from a traveling family, and it's something we've all embraced. I'm a big believer we've traveled. I'm very fortunate. We've traveled a lot internationally, but that means nothing. You can be a tourist in your own town. You can learn to love and explore your own town with a set of fresh eyes. There's so many websites you can go on. You can find hikes, you can find walks, you can find classes, you can find cute little bars and pubs and restaurants. Now, even though a lot of that is closed to us at the moment, right, it will return. And the greatest thing I would advocate for anybody to be is, if you have a love of travel, but you can't because you have little children in the house or you're taking care of an elderly person, you can be a tourist in your own town. Even if you just go for a morning and support your local art gallery or whatever. So travel is my big passion, reading and writing is my big passion, because my other business hat is I am a writer. I spend a lot of my day writing.
That's awesome. So are you working on any books right now? Or are you just free writing?
I self-published my first book. It was a novel set in South Africa and did pretty well, with it. And then I finished my second novel. It's also set in South Africa, but it's set during the time of political upheaval, simply because I see a lot of resonance in what's going on in different parts of the world, to the world of South Africa as I knew it as a young child. And I finished it. I'm in about revision number 5. So that is just grueling. And then I write a weekly blog. I have a weekly blog on my personal Jane Paterson website.
I love it, Jane. I love it. Love it. all this fun, creative stuff you're doing over there. All right. So let's see. Are you a cat or dog person?
Oh, I'm both. I was raised with dogs, and I currently own a 13-year-old little Yorkie Terrier.
Oh my goodness.
And she's very sweet. And I have a 19-year-old cat that we adopted and she's very old and she's very creaky, but she's adorable. I'm a big animal lover.
Hey,
big
I am.
Animal lover.
You know, I have to ask that question because I'm an animal lover too. It's my favorite question to ask because I was talking about these questions. I learned so much about my people that come on this show, and I'm like, I know who my animal people are. Like, who are my animal whispers?
I love my animals.
Yes, absolutely. All right, and Jane, what's your favorite food?
I would say, oh, you're being very difficult. We eat a lot of foreign cuisine. We eat a lot of foreign cuisine, and my mother was a lovely cook, but Scottish cuisine is not, in those days, wasn't really known for being the highlight of the world.
Gotcha.
So I'm very fond of Indian food, Thai food, Vietnamese food. I prefer very spicy things with a lot of flavor. I eat French food and Italian food, but I will always go Thai, Indian, and Vietnamese first.
Oh, my kids would love you. My kids would totally love you. They're all a bunch of little vegetarians and they love Thai food. That's like when we get together, we have to find a Thai restaurant because my husband and I are low carbers. So when we go there, we can find something for everybody. It's a win.
Absolutely.
So they would think you're like the coolest person ever.
Thank you.
I love it. All right. So one last really fun question I want to ask you. If you could be any character or superhero for a day, what would you pick? It can be anything you want.
If I could be well, she's not a character, but I would love to have walked in the same shoes as Jane Austen. I love her books. I think she is incredibly witty and incredibly clever in a fabulously understated, quiet sort of way. And I think I would have been interested to spend some time in that era. I wouldn't want to live there. I'm a modern day girl. I like my modern stuff around me. Trust me. But yes, superheroes are not really my forte. But yes, I think if I could be a character for a day, I'd like to be Jane Austen. Although she wasn't a character, she was a person. So possibly that was an incorrect answer.
No, it can be. This is the fun of this, is that you can do anything you want with this question, really. I tell people this is not a hard one, and it's always amazing the answers I get on this. I get sometimes very, routine answers, like I'll get Wonder Woman or Supergirl, and then I'll get some, like one day I had Felix the cat, and yours, cute. I haven't had yours, so that's different. I like it. It's different. So, and it fits you. I think it does. It kind of fits you. So I think that's awesome.
I think it does.
Exactly. So if our listeners wanted to learn a little bit more about, your company, Jane, and then your books and all that good stuff, where do they locate you?
Okay. 2 main websites are the easiest to go to. My actual business website, it's very easy. It's just One Perfect Speech as it's tracking at the bottom of your screen. It's straightforward. One Perfect Speech carries everything I do. You need to scroll down and look at the services. A lot of the services I've updated. Another great site, which is very much for the times, is my profile on LinkedIn. And that is just my name, Jane Paterson. And you'll notice every single one of my websites has a very standard picture, long blonde hair, black polo neck. If you see that, you know you're on my website because there are the Jane Patersons. My blog is under Jane Paterson. How original. It's just www.janepaterson.com, and you can access the blogs at the top. It says blog. You just click on that. I have Facebook pages, personal ones. I have Facebook pages for One Perfect Speech, and I also have an Instagram account that is under the name Jane Out and About.
Okay. Perfect. When this goes out, we'll be sure to get all the contact information on there. But I did go on to your main website, and I love it. It's very classy. It's very I guess eloquent is the word that I'm looking for on there. So lovely. It fits you perfect. I love it. So this has been wonderful. So I do want to say to our listeners, if you enjoy the show, please be sure you give us a rating both on Facebook and iTunes, because of course we cannot do this without you. And hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Yes. And with that, I do want to tell Jane Jane. Thank you so much, Jane, for being on here. You're incredible. Love what you're doing. Love your accent. It's so much fun. It makes me think of Mary Poppins a little bit or something like that.
I just always say that. I know.
I love it. I love it. That's what I remember when I think of these accents, Mary Poppins, you know? So I love it. And with that, I want to leave our listeners with a little quote here from Toni Morgan. You get to decide where your time goes. You can spend it, or you can either spend it moving forward, or you can spend it putting out fires. You decide. And if you don't decide, others will decide for you. All right, you guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.